Man, Victoria Pedretti just does not have good luck, does she? Happy Halloween, everybody! I'm so excited. This is like my favorite holiday, so I'm in my element right now. I have binged Bly Manor all week, and I've got some thoughts on it. The Haunting of Bly Manor is kind of like an anthology sort of sequel to The Haunting of Hill House, which was created by Mike Flanagan, and he created this one as well. He didn't write and direct it like he did with Haunting of Hill House, but he did create it, and so it is kind of his brainchild. It also stars several of the actors from The Haunting of Hill House, which when I saw it in the promo, I thought, okay, it's going to be one or two of them. There's actually like four or five of them, which is a little jarring at first. On one side, I will say it shows the range that these actors have, that in the first episode or two, I was like, okay, these are completely different characters. It shows that they're really good actors because I was like, they are not the characters from Haunting of Hill House. On the other side, though, it is still a little weird to have a whole separate show that's not connected to Hill House at all, and yet has almost all of the same actors. Like even up to like the ninth episode, there are still people who are coming back, and it was just weird. And the reason that they seem very different is because they're so quirky. The characters had to be such caricatures so as to be different from their characters in Hill House, if that makes any sense. Like they have accents and they're a lot more over the top. And I felt like, why would you cast so many of the same actors when you could just have gone with somebody new? But I will say it does work out. So in that kind of same vein, the show itself is not Hill House. If you really liked Haunting of Hill House, don't go into this expecting to have another one of those. It's not a horror per se. It's more like a gothic romance, as one of my friends put it. It's almost like a little bit of a tragedy too. And while it does have scary elements to it, it's more so just eerie and also sort of, I don't know, talking about the human condition and stuff like that. If you like British mysteries like Midsummer Murders or Poirot, you're gonna like this because it takes place in England and it is, everybody's British. There's one Scottish accent. I won't say Scottish actor, but Scottish accent. So in terms of the cinematography, I won't talk about that long because if you liked the cinematography in Haunting of Hill House, I've already talked about that. The soft lighting, the nice swift movements. You're gonna like the cinematography in Haunting of Bly Manor because it's almost the same. It's very soft lighting, very good camera work. I don't think there's any long takes, but there's a lot of interesting moments where they like do quick pans to things, and I thought that was really cool. But yeah, if you liked the Haunting of Hill House visuals, you're gonna like this one. What I really want to talk about is the writing and structure of the show, because that for me is where I have a lot of my thoughts. This show is primarily three ghost stories packed into one location. It's a ghost story about the main character, it's a ghost story about people who were there before the main character gets there, and it's a ghost story about one person who was there before anybody in this show was at Bly Manor. And so they kind of try to tie them together. They try to connect all these three ghost stories. And while I think they do an okay job of that, I don't think they were as connected as they should have been. Not all of them feel completely finished. There is one that feels like it has closure towards the end, but it doesn't even really come up until more so the end. The other two feel like they had something going and then we just never talked about them again. And that was probably my main problem with this show, is that it feels very disconnected. It feels loosely threaded with these characters, but the three main stories feel very disconnected in that they only get talked about in one section of the show or the other. And so it kind of feels like we get to talk about one and then we don't really talk about it again. Or we get to talk about another and we don't get to talk about it again. And then one kind of takes over and that's the end. And so I wanted it to be a little more threaded. The last episode does put them together a little bit more in the beginning, but mostly they feel separated. And in that, there's a lot of questions, or at least some, that don't get quite answered. It's not like Hill House where there was like a ton that were not really answered or they weren't really satisfactory. In this one, I think there were, instead of a lot of little ones, there were two main ones that I was like, where did that go? And I think what happened is kind of the same thing actually as Hill House, where there were the last two episodes, they had built it up perfectly, and then the ninth episode, I don't want to say it was a waste. It was a lot of backstory for something we didn't really need. I mean, we did. It comes into play, but I don't think we needed a whole episode for it. It is very crucial, but it was like, why are we doing this now? It's the eighth episode. I'm sorry, there was only 9 episodes in this, and I feel like they could have used another episode. But while the eighth episode is very cool, it's in black and white, so it's very kind of, those old horror movies, in black and white. It was really cool. It felt like, why are we doing this so late in the show? And then the ninth episode was really good. The first, 8 to 12 minutes wraps up so much, and it's so climactic, and there's so much going on, which is awesome. But then it focuses on one thing for the rest of the episode. And while it was a very emotional thing, and I really liked what they did with it, and I really loved the heart of the characters, they didn't focus on one or two other things that they really needed to. And while I can come up with kind of my own answers as to why things happened, they weren't explained very well. However, I do feel like it was still a better ending than Hill House. At least for those first 12 minutes, it did bring up a lot of stuff, and there was a lot of twists that I was like, wow, I did not see that coming, which was really awesome. The only other problem structurally is that in the middle, episodes 5, 6, and 7, they introduced this topic that you have to kind of... I told my brother, it's like when I was writing an essay in college, and I either had to write the whole thing or none of it, because if I wrote half of it, I'd lose my train of thought. And it was kind of like watching episodes 5, 6, and 7 that way, because you have to kind of watch them back to back, or you're going to get confused, because they introduce this one subtopic that is very crucial to the whole show and to the end specifically, but they never quite say outright at any one point what's happening until maybe episode 7. And so by that point, you're just so confused. You kind of understand it, but you really need to be paying attention. And the problem is because they don't outright say it in episodes 5 or 6, trying to figure out what's going on, that confusion, that distraction of I'm really putting this together, takes away from two incredibly shocking moments that I was like, it wasn't even until after the fact that I was like, oh yeah, that was supposed to be shocking. I either was like, oh, I subconsciously expected that was what was happening, or I just didn't even register it when it was going on, and I was like, oh, that was supposed to be a big twist. So it would have been helpful if they had sort of explained it a little bit more rather than just showing. However, I will say that in this show, one big pro is that there are so many interesting concepts I would never have thought of in a horror or in any other story, and Mike Flanagan just has an incredible sense of being able to do interesting things with ghost stories and make it so emotional and about the characters, especially towards the end. It's very character-based, very human-like, and I don't know, it's not just about the ghosts or the scares, and that's awesome because it gives us so much more depth. And he has a way of creating and writing and filming that if it wasn't filmed in that specific way, it would be totally not understandable. He's so good at being able to be like, this is a confusing topic that I'm going to do my best to show visually without telling you. Again, it would have been better if they had told us a little bit more instead of just showed. But it was a great display of how to do this without telling. Lastly, and very importantly, I do want to talk about some of the characters. They are very likable. I love a lot of these characters, and they all have their little things that you're like, they feel like this family. It's not even really a family. It's all these people who work in this house, and it's 2 kids who lost their parents, and their uncle is very far away and drinks a lot, and he never comes to the house for a specific reason. So it's like this family made up of people who are not related to each other. It's a cook, it's a gardener, it's the maid, it's the nanny, and the kids. and you just get this sense of like community with them, and they're very close. And oh my god, one of the characters is just so wholesome. I love him. He just does puns, and he's like British. And if you've ever heard of the app Headspace, he sounds like the guy who narrates all of the meditations. He's just so great. But all of the characters are just so likable and so deep, and they have a really good sense of like family with each other. Victoria Pedretti once again does an incredible job portraying anxiety and portraying a lot of these things that are haunting her. The guy who plays Luke, I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but the guy who plays Luke in Haunting of Hill House is also in this, and he's his range is incredible because while in Haunting of Hill House, he is this sort of teddy bear, down on his luck guy. In this, he is scary because not in the way of like a ghost is scary, but in the way of like human beings can be scary to one another. So he did a really good job playing a complete opposite type. The kids as well. At first I thought they were really, really annoying, and I'm like, I really hate these kids because they're doing some terrible things, but obviously you come to learn why they're doing those things. And oh my god, Flora is adorable. The actress that plays her is adorable, and the kid who plays Miles is so mature in a very literal sense in the show, but they both did an amazing job being these kids who had to portray very adult emotions. So Haunting of Bly Manor, I ripped on it for its structure a lot, but I will say I really did love the show. Again, don't go into it expecting Haunting of Hill House. Expect it being some sort of anthology to it that's like more of a Midsummer Murders or Poirot. But it is a very good show. I really did like it, even if I had some structural issues with it. And the thing is, you don't even get that there's like a structural issue until sort of the end, when things kind of don't come to fruition as much. While I like Haunting of Hill House better, and I think it has a more through line, I really like a lot of these characters. I love the location. It was a really fun show to watch. I'm going to give The Haunting of Bly Manor a 3 out of 4. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of Haunting of Bly Manor. Did you like it? Did you like it better than Haunting of Hill House? Did you like it not as much as Haunting of Hill House? Also, let me know in the comments what your favorite Halloween movie is, what your favorite Halloween candy is. I want to talk Halloween because it's Halloween, and we need more of that this year because there's not a whole lot to do that we can do safely. You better be doing things safely. That's all I'm saying. I know there's an extra hour, and I know it's a full moon, and I know it's a Saturday, but you best be doing things safely. Thanks for sticking around for all the Halloween stuff, guys. I hope it was really fun, and I'm hoping to do a lot more next year with a lot more Halloween movies. I was just kind of, getting acclimated to everything with this Halloween season. But look forward to the next video. I'm going to be doing some updates, some looking forward, and celebrating the 1-year anniversary of the channel. That's really weird, but really, really cool. As always, keep your hopes high, your stress low, and Halloween right in the middle. I'll see you guys later.